Hey everyone, this is a focus segment from a longer, detailed tutorial where I take a deep dive into several major workflow features. If you'd like to watch the full video with all chapters and additional context, you'll find it linked above and in the description. Okay, let's dive in. Let's take a look at visual search. If I open the import window again, we can see a new visual search checkbox under the video analysis section. This is enabled by default, so media is automatically analyzed for visuals on import. And just like with transcript search, when opening or updating an existing library, it's necessary to manually analyze clips in order to use visual search. I'll select this first folder of footage and click Import All. Opening the Background Tasks window shows the visual analysis progressing. Since this takes a bit longer than transcription, I'll skip ahead. So now that it is finished, I can easily locate visual moments in my footage, including objects and actions, using natural language search. And to be totally honest, I've unfortunately found the search in this version to be rather inconsistent at times, so it's definitely not yet perfect. But more on that later. Once again, I can click on the magnifying glass menu on the left and select Visual. And let's just start with one of Apple's own examples from their website. I can enter climbing stairs. And as we can see already, after just entering climbing, I get my first result of this gentleman, who I guess qualifies as climbing a mountain. Now if I add stairs, I'm given the result I'm actually looking for, a clip of someone walking down some stairs. So a great example of finding both an object and an action. One quick heads up for foreign language users. While transcript search is explicitly limited to English, as the Transcribe in English option already makes clear, visual search, on the other hand, doesn't seem to be strictly English only. Some non-English search terms do return results. From my own testing, however, English searches are clearly more reliable and generally produce better matches. So for now, searching in English is still the safest option. Another action search, running, returns the, as I happen to know, only clip I have of this woman running in place. Next, I'll try something broader and search for rain. Final Cut returns 6 results, and if I skim through the clips, we can see that there are a couple that don't quite fit the search term, such as this one with the fireworks, and another one with a hippopotamus, which is actually pretty hilarious. Just like with transcript search, visual search results are also assigned relevance ratings. And again, I can use the browser's group and sort options to organize results by relevance, without even switching views. This makes it immediately obvious which results Final Cut is confident about and which ones it's less sure of. Here we can see that Final Cut itself has low confidence in those particular clips compared to the others. If you prefer seeing this spelled out explicitly, the same relevance ratings are also visible as a column in list view. And again, just as with transcript search, I can click to open the filter window and have the parameters pre-selected for me, allowing me to create a smart keyword collection with a single click. I'll just name this one Rain. And just to show how useful this is, I'll right-click on the event and choose New Smart Collection. I'll name it Drone, and double-click it to open the filter window. At the top right, I can open the Add Filter menu and select Text. That might seem a little counterintuitive at first when we're setting up a visual search, but if you look at the menu, it actually makes sense. Final Cut treats both transcript and visual as additional text-based search scopes and simply adds them to the existing text filter alongside things like names, notes, and markers. So from here, I can choose Visual and then enter Drone into the text field. As soon as I do that, the Smart Collection is populated automatically. Even before I close the filter window, we can already see 5 clips that Final Cut believes to be drone shots. And in this case, it's actually doing a pretty good job, as we can see when I skim through them. Now I'll press Command-I to reopen the import window and select a second folder full of footage. I'll let that import and analyze, and once that's finished, we can see that Final Cut has recognized additional drone and rain clips. I now have 10 instead of 5 drone clips and 8 instead of 6 rain clips in their respective smart collections. Very cool. Where inconsistencies unfortunately come up when using visual search is, for example, when I search for two women hugging. While this successfully returns two clips containing two women, even though they're actually hugging in only one of them, you may have noticed that nothing appeared until I entered the word hugging. In other words, deleting hugging and searching for the broader concept two women returns no results at all, despite the system demonstrably having detected that condition in the full query. If I undo that and then delete the term two, I get a different result. An additional clip with three women, which I suppose one could argue are hugging. Most confusing of all, if I leave only women as the search term, I once again get no results at all. Even more confusing, if I change the plural women to the singular woman, I suddenly get the most results, including the three women, but not the two. So the system clearly appears to recognize visual elements, but it only responds to very specific phrasing, while ignoring simpler or more general queries that should arguably be easier to satisfy. Here's one interesting edge case I ran into, and it's actually contrary to what I've heard and seen elsewhere so far. In one clip shot from inside a moving train, another train races by on the adjacent track. When I search for yellow tram, Final Cut doesn't just return the whole clip, it actually isolates just the short section where the yellow painted end of that passing train appears in frame at the end. That's the only case I've seen so far where visual search selects just a portion of a clip rather than the entire thing. It's still inconsistent, and notably doesn't happen if I search for yellow train instead, but it does show that the system is capable of more granular detection than it usually exposes. If that behavior becomes more consistent over time, it could make visual search significantly more powerful than it currently only teases it is. My conclusion is that in this first version of the feature, you should try different variations of your search terms to make sure you're seeing all relevant content. This feels less like a failure of detection and more like a mismatch between detection and query mapping. I would expect some fine-tuning in that department to be on the horizon. So that was one chapter from a much larger tutorial. If you'd like to watch the full breakdown, click here. And here, there's another video YouTube thinks you might enjoy. If this was helpful, feel free to subscribe for more in-depth Final Cut and motion content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.